Welcome to the third episode of Millennial Pagan Podcast, the podcast that is quickly becoming a voice to the growing number of pagan millennials in our brand of witchcraft, magic, practice, and worship. Our goal is to explore the tough and controversial topics that affect pagans, witches, heathens, polytheists, and occultists in today's world. We are your hosts, Autumn and
Jera Stone, and also we have our first guest, Franny.
First
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hello.
So, how is everybody doing today?
Doing pretty well. Good weekend so far. Go back to work tomorrow. Not looking forward to that.
I know exactly how that feels.
Y'all Monday through Fridayers.
I know.
Yeah.
You've already gone through half your week.
It is my Wednesday. It's also laundry day.
It was laundry day last week, and I still haven't done it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That explains the shirt.
Hey, I am supporting Red for Ed today.
Oh, okay. All right.
So.
Well, I'm sure we could also get into Red for Ed later, because that brings us to today's episode. We'll be talking with Franny about the importance of political involvement and activism. But first, we feel here that it's very important to get to know our guests and their brand of paganism. So, Franny, if you don't mind, tell us your coming of witch story.
Not at all. I honestly owe my witch path all to Harry Potter. I am one of those witches who found it through Harry Potter. It's
Very millennial thing.
It's like my gateway drug, I guess.
I like
to
it.
witchcraft. I started reading Harry Potter when I was like 11 or 12, and then during the summer vacation I was just surfing the internet, and I came across an actual witch store, and I first noticed they were selling like real cauldrons, and I'm like, this is real, like, oh my gosh. Like, so I just kind of went from there and started looking more into it, and eventually I considered myself Wiccan for many years.
What was the first book or the first thing that you read that really gave you your knowledge about Wicca?
Oh, gosh. I am one of those that started off with the controversial ones. I believe it was Teen Witchcraft by Silver
Ravenwolf?
Yep. That was when I had to beg my stepmom for it, and she actually made me promise that I wouldn't do anything bad. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'll never do anything bad. But I followed the Wiccan path for a good couple of years until I kind of eventually just branched out and started doing my own thing, kind of created my own moral code. I still follow like the basic Sabbats, and, you know, for the most part, I consider myself a good witch. Although I think I lean more now towards like the gray side of witchcraft, but it's still a good witch.
So if you had to classify what kind of witch you are, what would you call yourself?
Oh, that's an interesting title. Probably eclectic, just an eclectic pagan pantheistic witch.
What pantheon?
The two goddesses that call to me the most and kind of become my patron goddesses are Bladawith and Caradwyn, the Welsh goddesses.
I like that. I've heard of them. I haven't done any research into them yet.
They're pretty interesting. I know Bladawith is kind of picking up, like, you know, information, and Caradwyn's been there for a while, but a lot of people are picking up on Bladawith lately. Seeing a lot more art and a lot more things, like, for sale for her on Etsy when I go to look for oils or incenses. But they're both kind of like, you know, that strong, independent woman kind of thing, where Caradwyn is the more of the mother, like, hey, maybe you should do this. And if you don't listen to her, she'll just kind of kick you or make you do it anyway. She's like, well, you're going to listen to me and you're going to like this. So,
yeah.
And Bladawith is very much like a, hey, follow your heart, make your own path kind of goddess.
Okay. What would you say would be like the most impactful thing after you became pagan that helped you continue your walk?
I know I consider myself, I've been a witch for about like 16 years because I found it a while ago. And there were times where I kind of, you know, left it and stopped being involved as much as I had used to be. I didn't read as much as I used to. But then I kept coming back to it for like the earth side. And it's more of like when I look at the Sabbats and I look at my spirituality and life versus other religions, I see it as, you know, like we're celebrating life itself. We see the changes, we celebrate, you know, our lives, and then we celebrate the oncoming of death and acknowledge that, you know, that will come. That's just how our universe works.
So what kind of magic do you tend to do?
Very, I guess, if and when I do need to do magic, it's more for like personal involvement, or like, hey, I need to kick myself along down this road a little bit more, or I need some advice, show me the way, kind of advice. A lot of tarot reading and oracle reading.
So a lot more divination than magic.
I like that.
So your altar has a lot of ocean themes to it because I've seen it. Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe what draws you to the ocean, why those are on your altar?
I don't know. When I was younger, probably about 8 or 9, I had a weird dream about the ocean. And since then, I've just been obsessed with it. Like dolphins, I consider, my spirit animals, I guess to say. There's just something about the jaw of the ocean, how, it's where we all came from, essentially. I see it as, like life and death. There's a certain freedom about the ocean, being able to swim and follow your own path out there. But I do have a huge bookshelf altar for the ocean. But I had an altar set out to dedicate to the ocean spirits and ocean goddesses. There's no specific ocean goddess that I follow. It's just the ocean in specific. But I also have a shelf where I set up, like a rose quartz and other crystals to help kind of give love and promote, healthy change for the ocean because it is in such a dire state right now. And then I truly believe that the ocean is a lifeline of this planet. That if we screw up, mess up the ocean as we continuously have been, we're going to be in serious trouble.
Right. Isn't it 2050, they predict there'll be more plastic than fish in the ocean?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And just the changes that we've seen in the Great Barrier Reef right now, I mean, that should be a red flag to everybody.
Yeah, they're having a lot of bleaching problems, if I remember correctly. Yes. Yeah.
So being that you say you've been a pagan for about 16 years now, from where you started to where you are now, what are some of the major differences that you've taken upon yourself?
I think I had this moment growing up where, I hate to sound like the stereotypical teenage witch, but I mean, the magic part was what originally, drew me into it. And I was very much involved by like, hey, let's do this spell, then this spell, and this and this. And like at the same time, I acknowledged like the Sabbaths and the spirituality of it. But then I kind of sat down one day and I'm like, well, that's not the most important part of that. This, the goddess, seeing the earth and everything like that. I don't know, it's hard to describe. That was just like my snap moment where I was like, oh, I've been seeing this, not to say that being, more involved with the magic side is wrong, but the spirituality to me at that moment became more important.
Okay.
So definitely today, like I don't do as much magic as I used to. It's more involved with like, environmental issues, protecting the earth, trying to get us back on track with that.
Okay. Well, I guess that's kind of a good segue into one of the reasons why we have you here.
Well, yeah, it is. It's a great one. So I guess I'll do a little caveat. One of the reasons why I was so gung-ho about starting Millennial Pagan Podcast and why it's Millennial Pagan is that I've been seeing a lot of millennials actually going out there and trying to make a difference in the world, politically, environmentally. We're the kind of the start of this whole, I guess, arms race to actually caring. And we saw a lot of that with the Occupy, and now we're seeing it with the next generation taking up also their own problems and their own things and going, you know what, no, this isn't working. And we saw it a lot with Bernie Sanders' movement and so on and so forth. We can go on and on. But one of the reasons why I wanted Franny to be our first guest was because she really demonstrates a lot of those things that I think the millennials want to do. And being a pagan herself, I want kind of her view on how to be more active, because I'm not very political active. I'm more armchair activist, I guess, or a Facebook activist, you could say. I've seen you go out and do. So that's why I wanted you here. Thank you for coming.
Of course.
So I guess my first question in that, Rain, is why is it important for us to be involved in local government as pagans, as millennials, or as anybody?
It's very important. I think it also depends on like your spiritual beliefs. Like I was saying earlier, myself, I'm very earth-centered. So, like I celebrate the seasons, and to me, it would just seem wrong, I guess, to just kind of sit back while all this destruction happens, while we trample the earth, while we misuse it as we have been. Like, it just, you worship this beautiful, blue marble in this expansive space, and we don't do anything to protect it.
Right.
So, but as far as being involved in local politics, essentially, a lot of people think, to change the world that you need to start, big, go federal government, that's what most people only pay attention to. But really, if you want to change the world, you have to start small. Just look outside your window and go from there. Like, pay attention to what's happening outside your window and your surroundings. Because like one small step in that direction can have a huge ripple effect, throughout the government up to the federal government.
Right. I mean, we just saw it on Facebook. I saw a video of an African-American male barbecuing at a local park and a woman just flat out being completely rude to him, and the local police officers were called. Well, the ordinance that says whether or not you can barbecue is a city ordinance, but if this video is going viral, then obviously that's a whole reaction of everybody, and they're not realizing that to change these laws or to make them even more aware of these laws, you need to start in your city.
Mm-hmm. Big time. It's just, you really have to step up and make a difference. If you want to make a change, you just take that first step. Pay attention. A lot of this information and stuff that, I come across, or the local events I find, is through Facebook. Like, your local politicians are all on Facebook, find their page. I promise you they're probably a lot more responsive than, the senators or, other federal government employees.
Right. And they have a lot less lobbying that they have to do.
Yeah, they're much more involved because, and a lot of people don't go to local, voting. It's a very low turnout. So they really have to try and push to get those votes out and to be able to advertise and market themselves. Like, most of the money comes from them, or like local citizens of their city.
Well, what are a couple things that you've personally been involved with locally?
Last thing I was involved in, we did a sit-in down at the Capitol to stop the Phoenix Chamber of Commerce after the state of Arizona they did pass, I believe, Prop 206, the minimum wage hike. There was a lot of pushback on that, and they tried to repeal the Voter Protection Act, which, lets us put laws into place in Arizona and prevents them from being changed or repealed themselves. So if they were able to get that out, then they could revoke anything we had put in place, like medical marijuana, the minimum wage hike. They could just do whatever they wanted. So we went down and sat silently while, the special committee voted, and they ended up voting no on it, which was great because protects all of the things we've put into place. But that was something a lot of people didn't, know about, and media wasn't pushing it. But it was very, very, very critical to have them vote no.
Yeah, that's one of those very important things that, it can fly under the radar, because, do you expect mainstream media to talk about something like that? No.
Mm-hmm. Even local media talking about that. I just want to make sure I understand the law that they were trying to put in place would have been able to take away certain things that voters of Arizona voted on. So it would have been like, well, let's go with medical marijuana. It was on the ballot when we voted for president here in Arizona, and if it went through, then that law could have said in Phoenix that they don't have to go by that, or in Phoenix it doesn't even have to go on the ballot.
What they could change about it, or?
Well, what were they trying to do? Were they trying to make sure it never ended up on the ballot for Phoenix citizens? Or were they trying to make sure that if it ended up on the ballot, it passed, Phoenix can then decide they don't want it?
Yes, they could. So essentially, like, if because we would still have the right to push laws. You get enough signatures on a petition, you can have, whatever you want on the ballot. If we voted in, our state legislature would have the option of, changing it, a negative or even a positive way, or they could just outright say, no, never mind, which is actually how we got this law in the Voter Protection Act in the first place. Arizona had previously voted yes on medical marijuana, and our legislature said nope, and they took it away. So the next time we got to vote, we put the Voter Protection Act in place.
Okay.
So a bit of irony in there.
Yeah, it is kind of funny, protecting it for the next time.
Yep. Yeah, we did not like that.
No, I wouldn't either.
Yeah.
So, what other than the sit-in, which was a good experience, and I don't think you got to finish what actually occurred. You said it was they said no, that they're not going to do that law, but there was a little bit more to that story that you told me.
So yes, coming up, I believe in the 2018 this election, there will be something on our ballots, pertaining to this. Since we voted no on it, it'll kind of be up to us what happens with it next. So as far as what it's going to be called or any other information, not 100% on, but I know there's going to be something that we get to vote on.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's a good experience. Do you have any bad protest experiences or any experiences where you went down to the Capitol to say something?
I went down for the March for Science, which was a lot of fun. There was a ton of people. That one went down really well. No pushback from people. A lot of people on the side, watching. But as far as bad, nothing too serious. I was involved in the No Doppel protest downtown as well, which was against the Dakota Access Pipelines. And we were standing on the side of the street, holding signs up for passing cars. And a lot of people, honked their horn in support and cheered. There were a few people who drove by, flipping us off. I had a guy who was just walking by, come by, start talking to me and completely random about how Trump won and how we just need to accept it. And I was like, sir, out of, all due respect, this isn't what this protest is about at all.
Right.
So, but I think because it was so close to the election that a lot of people took it that way.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So.
Right. You were involved most recently, Arizona had Red for Ed. And you went down for Red for Ed. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. Do you want to explain what Red for Ed was?
So Red for Ed, at least from my perspective, was to not only get more money for our teachers, because that's what everybody thinks it's just about, but it was also to get more money for school funding,
right?
To be able to help the kids pretty much get everything that they needed to learn, get everything that they needed for sports, for music, all the different equipment and all that. A lot of it was just essentially focused on, the teachers want more money. No, the reason the teachers walked out was because they wanted more funding for the students. I know a lot of teachers personally that said, I could give a crap if I get more money. We need more money for our students. So a lot of people really took the movement as, the teachers just want more money. Let's go ahead and just line their pockets, which Governor Ducey, I really had to stop myself from saying what I wanted to say.
Thank you. We're trying not to be super politically obvious.
Right. But a lot of the things that he was saying and that he was doing was primarily just to get the teachers more money. And yet he wasn't talking about extra funding for students.
Right.
Which really, personally, it was heartbreaking because he was trying to do a quick fix. And the teachers actually walked out. This was national news.
It was?
The teachers actually walked out of school for 6 school days. 6 school days. Think about that. Think of how many kids didn't go to school for 6 days because their teachers weren't there.
And how many other people's jobs were impacted by this?
Yeah, how many other people's jobs? How many people had to miss work because they needed to stay home with their kids or because they couldn't find a babysitter or any of this? And I personally know a couple people who are teachers that did stay behind and made sure that, because there's a lot of these kids that have their only means of a meal at lunch are the schools. They don't have a good home life environment. They don't have the funding at home to be able to feed them and take care of them throughout the day. Whereas, and there was a lot of teachers who still supported Red for Ed, but they also realized these students need help as well.
There was a couple of charter schools that said we just can't close down because of that reason. But if you go, your kids will be put in somebody else's room. Somebody else who is here will take care of them. Go do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And I thought that was actually really a beautiful thing that some of these schools were taking that on them.
Definitely. What was your experience like at the Red for Ed?
Good, nothing bad. It was a very unifying feeling being around a bunch of people. I originally went to school to be a teacher. I did a lot of student teaching. So even though I went on a different path, I still feel tied and connected to supporting my fellow teachers. It was a lot of fun meeting a lot of different people, and you really felt the love and the push for this and how important it was. And I posted something on Facebook after seeing a lot of, criticism and hate and pushback from a lot of other people on Facebook about this. About like, oh, well, I'm not sure what to do with my kid. I can't go to work. I can't leave work. And it's funny, like, since how much we depend on teachers in schools for more than just teaching our kids.
Yeah.
Like, without them, the city just stops.
It does. It does. I mean, I know where I work. I work in a call center. And it was about half of the people that usually are there at the time that I get to work weren't there at all. And everybody else, and you could tell people were stressed out because those people weren't there.
Yep.
Or I had more people in my workspace. I'm private security in a public space, and it kind of considered entertainment, and people, instead of calling out, would just drop their kids off. And
like, here, you guys take care of my problem right now.
Yeah, like, I don't have time for this. Here's $20. Go entertain yourself for the day. Well, when that $20 runs out for food,
yeah, or
wherever, for whatever, suddenly they're my problem.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I do have to say, I mean, I got a lot of pushback on Facebook as well, because I reached out to Governor Ducey, and I actually sent him a message like, why aren't you talking about the actual reason behind Red for Ed? Why are you just focusing on the teachers want more money? Why are you not talking about the students need the funding? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why are you not talking about that? And I got so many other people, half and half, bad-mouthing me and supporting me, but still nothing from Governor Ducey.
Yeah, and his comment of, well, at least we're not last, or something along those lines. And you see a lot of hate and pushback on Facebook. And to me, I don't understand it, because this is such an issue that affects all of us, that we should be 100% behind these teachers, even if you don't have kids. Like, you need to support the education system. We want smart people.
Yeah.
We want educated, fellow citizens. We want educated people who eventually run our government, or, plan our, public transit systems.
Yeah, it was actually kind of funny. I actually talked to a couple of students who were affected by Red for Ed, and even they said it was not a vacation. Our teachers were doing something for us. They're doing it for our future and for the future of America, essentially, because our children are our future, and that's something that we do need to focus on. We may be millennials now, but what about the next generations coming up? Mm-hmm. What example are we setting?
Right. No, I agree. So I actually want to move back. You said you were working with the Dakota Access Pipeline. Why do you think doing that, or caring about that as a pagan in North America or America, why do you think that was an important thing to do?
Mostly because there is a lot of, fracking isn't the greatest thing since sliced bread. There's a lot of problems with it, no matter what they say or try to cover it up and, candy coat it. It's a very bad thing. And having, oil spills all over the country. I mean, this stuff is almost irreversible to fix. Mm-hmm. And we can't get that land back. And again, it goes back to, being pagan. As I worship the earth, it just seems like my duty and my responsibility to step up and try to protect it. And
right.
steer us in a different direction.
And when you said we don't get that land back, it's not even ours to begin with.
Yeah.
And that was my major thing, was that we're encroaching upon actual law that we signed with another sovereign nation, and we're just saying, well, we can go in there and do this anyway. They're not American citizens to any degree. They live here on the land that is surrounded by this country, but they are their own nation, and they have their own rights. And the UN should have maybe made it a more bigger deal, because even a representative showed up at the UN and was like, hey, they're gonna do this shit to us. Can you say something?
It's just the whole aspect of, America thinks, oh, nobody can touch us, and to a point, most people are afraid.
right.
to, say anything. And if they do, I mean, you've got so many, big media and other people who can kind of cover it up and change people's perspective, or like, hey, scapegoat, look at this. This is a bigger deal.
And you had to really look for information day in and day out about the Dakota Access, like just the ground zero of what was actually happening there on the line.
Definitely. And during this too, we had the 2016 presidential primaries, and I was waiting for Hillary. I had my fingers crossed. I'm like, just mention Doppel, just say you're against it. And I mean, that would be such a huge thing to get people not only behind you, but it would bring more awareness to this issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Because a lot of what happened to these people while they were out there protesting just got swept under the rug.
Right. And did Bernie Sanders go? I know he said something about it.
I believe
did he go
did.
there? Yeah. And he went there and he said something about it. Yeah. So I was
He came out full on like against fracking, very environmental, which is what I would want a political candidate coming from, my environmental stance to be like.
right. And just be open about the issues that they care about, period. Definitely.
Definitely where they get their money from too, and who's lighting
And
their
he was
pocketbooks.
the only candidate that had a stance on animal rights.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which, I mean, I have to say to that, I think personally it was a sign from a god, a deity, Bernie Sanders.
Definitely.
The little bird that landed on his podium as he was giving a speech.
Wasn't he legitimately talking about environment at the same
He was.
He
And
was.
Bird, he's like,
Little bird just lands right on his little podium, and he's like, "This is what I'm talking about right here."
I couldn't agree more.
I think that I believe that was amazing, and that was a sign from a higher power, or as many higher powers that can do something like that. And it's just one of those things where it got swept under the rug by the people who are now in office.
Yeah, you would have, big media, as soon as Trump kind of, took office, they looked inward and said, oh, did we create this monster? I'm like, well, when you're filming empty podiums and Bernie's having a rally in Phoenix, Arizona, and you're not filming that or putting it on the news, but you're waiting for Trump to come out. Yeah, I think you kind of did. And like back to the Bernie thing, I actually had a Bernie Sanders bumper sticker on my car. But I thought the same thing as well. Like this, my personal belief, other people will see different higher powers. Like this is a sign from the earth and the goddess. Like, hey, please pick this candidate. This is who I choose. This is the way we need to go.
Yeah.
And when he didn't get the primary election, when
the primaries happened, there was a lot of things that were going on at the time. Which I mean, and right now, if I can just say a sidebar, personally, before that happened, I was registered as an independent because I don't side. But seeing as what happened with the primary elections, how messed up things were trying to go vote as an independent when people actually stated, I registered as a Democrat. Why can't I vote in the primaries? A lot of the computer systems had those failure issues, quote unquote, failure issues.
Yeah.
And I just want to say this. For anybody who is registered as independent or not a primary party, do so ASAP. Because this is one of the reasons why I believe our voice is not being heard. It's because our government is a two-party system.
in a state set up the way that Arizona's set up.
Yeah.
In other states, they're not treated as poorly as, well, let's be honest, red states.
Yeah.
Historically red states, we can even just add. That's one thing. You want to look at your voter rights in your state, because you're going to think that, oh, I'm an American, I have voter rights. It's going to actually change state by state.
It is.
And even city by city. Like, just look at, we had a major problem where they tried to change our voting districts and in an unfair way. And even your voting district has a lot to do with how things set up and where the money falls.
And I will say this. I actually saw something online before all this started happening. I don't know if you've heard of it, but Adam ruins everything.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. If you guys want to understand a little bit more about the voter process, watch, I believe it's called Adam Ruins Elections. There's actually an episode where he talks about it, and it's a perfect indication of what happened here in Arizona. where the districts were changed, so it screwed everything up, and it favored one party over the other.
Oh yeah.
So I say, at least now, if you don't know, do your research, find out what's going on in your area, but it's probably safe to say you better register as either Democrat or Republican, whichever one you choose.
Now, we can't tell you what to do, but we do suggest to do something.
Yeah, we suggest you do that, so that way, when the time comes, you can help the right side win.
And even more importantly than that, just go and vote.
Yeah, definitely go and vote.
Like, millennial percentages for voters this past time was better, but we're not doing the best that we can. And I understand a lot of people were very disappointed in the two people that they had options for. And I get that really made it a difficult choice.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think we're going to take a short break and we'll come right back.
Yep. All right, and we are back with Franny on Millennial Pagan Podcast. Franny, now I know that you're very active in a lot of the environmental groups out here in Arizona. Why don't you go ahead and talk about a little bit about the groups that you're a part of, and any other groups that you might know that our listeners that are in Arizona might be able to become a part of.
So the big one right now that I've been following for a while, since I found them again through Facebook, is Arizona Sustainability Alliance. And they are a nonprofit group that helps to promote, sustainable change within Arizona, and they do it through project-based change. So they'll have like monthly meetings or monthly, volunteer activities where you can go and like help clean up North Mountain. Or recently they did one where it was called Grow My Own Garden, and people went and, helped set up gardens, pots and stuff for refugees in their homes so they could have food in their backyard.
Wow.
So it's not always about going out, and to the mountains or down to like the Rio Salado, river and cleaning up that area. It's more of like, hey, what can we do to make Phoenix a little bit more livable? Or not even Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, to help out the communities and whatnot. And what else? What else do we have going on?
They also do monthly sustainable business meetings, and
so like businesses in the Phoenix area can go to these meetings and learn how to be sustainable.
Yeah, they have projects and ideas of how you can implement different ideas to make your business more sustainable.
Neat. That's great. That's
kind of a community event where everyone can kind of come in and pitch ideas. Sometimes they'll have local guests and speakers come down to talk.
Okay, and what group was that again?
The Arizona Sustainability Alliance.
Arizona Sustainability Alliance.
Okay. And do you have any events coming up that you're going to be going to
with that group?
With that group, or anything else?
Their next event that I'll probably be going to is their sustainable food systems. So talking about like where our food comes from.
Right.
And they also just did an urban tree planting, which Tempe has been pushing a urban tree or urban forest program to help cool the urban heat.
Right. I was just reading about that and talking about how we need more shade in the area, and getting more trees in would help with that and keep us cooler, because a lot of our heat problem comes from actually our streets.
Yep.
So recently, Tempe has been kind of an ongoing project, and I'm sure they're going to have another one coming up soon where, we've gone around the city of Tempe and planted, trees through parks or down by Tempe Town Lake or in the backs of like businesses and stuff to kind of help cool off Tempe and I guess essentially the city of Phoenix, because urban heat is a huge issue for us right now.
Right. Of course, coming up on the 100 days of 100 degrees.
Yeah.
So what other kind of things do you know about the city of Tempe is doing?
City of Tempe actually just adopted a huge bill where they are trying to go. It was pushed by Lauren Kuby. They are planning to go 100% renewable for city operations by 2035.
Wow. And
they also want to be carbon neutral by 2050.
Do you know what kind of first steps they're taking for that?
Right now, we are currently sitting at 6.5% of renewable, they use 6.5 renewable energy for city operations. Most of that comes from like solar rooftops locally.
Right.
So I guess the first step would get, upping, where does our energy come from?
Mm-hmm. And more solar panels probably would help.
Mm-hmm. Which I guess is kind of where local politics feed into like state and federal government, because a lot of that money and grants and stuff comes from like the state and, where they're headed and, who's allowing what.
Right. So we were,
Well, I was actually just gonna ask what, because we do have listeners outside of Arizona, what advice would you give to anybody trying to get into environmentalism locally where they are?
Explore Facebook, essentially. Again, like look up your local politicians, see what they're doing, what their stances are. A lot of the times they'll post events or even like, hey, meet and greets, come talk to me, come tell me what, you want to tell me. You can look under, your local event section. You can even search for like, tree planting or other, groups that are doing things. You basically find, at least on my part, I have found everything on Facebook. And then once you you get your foot in the door, you meet this group, you'll meet other groups and other people.
Right.
And more will pop up.
And it really depends on your area. So like we're talking about, we have urban heat problems. If you're from a different state, you might have other problems like clean water. And, clean water, Flint, Michigan.
Yep.
What can we say about that? Other than get clean water to Flint. So like a lot of other states, even Tempe, we have a big water problem with our pipes and leading. I'm sure a lot of people who are local to our podcast are having a lot of headaches with all of a sudden this road's closed now.
Yeah. I believe City of Tempe posted a message on Facebook saying, hey, this smell is coming from the pipes and, this is because of this and this, which is also something when you go on Facebook and you look up your local politicians, go to their page and scroll down to where it says, follow. Click that and hit the little star that says see first, because it'll be the first post that you'll see that day. And if this stuff is important to you, Facebook hides a lot of what you see. You're going to want to see this stuff first. So any updates they post, you'll know about it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's actually really good information. I didn't know about that. So guess I'm going to have to open Facebook.
Tempe, kind of to reel it back to what Tempe is doing for our sustainability. So we've got the 100% renewable energy coming up, and then they've also, like I said, been working on the urban forest. They have zero waste days where you can go to certain parts of the city and you can, you'll essentially give them your old electronics to recycle, so you're not just tossing them out. They've started a bike share program, which I'm sure if you've seen the yellow and green bikes around the city.
They're actually slight headaches for me.
It's some of the local the councilmen and councilwomen, they've gotten their share of emails lately from people complaining, and they're trying to appease everybody, but essentially it's for people who don't have cars and to promote people from not using their cars, which a lot of our environmental issues come from cars
and our bad air quality.
Yeah.
So. Well, no, which is kind of funny you bring that up, because just the other day I was out and about and I actually saw not just bicycles but scooters.
I saw them too.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
So some of the negative things I heard about the bikes, but I'm seeing them being used a lot, and I'm actually really happy with how much I'm seeing them used. Major problems that we have, at least in the city of Scottsdale, is that these companies promise the city of Scottsdale only a minimum of this many bikes in the city at any time, and that's not the number that are there. And it's not really just because people from Tempe are biking up to Scottsdale. These companies are actually dumping more bikes than they promised. Another problem was in the very beginning, they were dumping them in public places, but private property. So I would end up walking past like 30 of them and then having to call the company and say, you can't leave these here. You can't drop them off here. This is private property. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll come get them. 3 days later, there's still about 25 sitting there, and some parked in different places. Something that I'm worried about is that these people that pick the bikes up when they're tourists don't have helmets.
Yeah.
And that is scary to me. We are very fortunate that we have sidewalks and bike lanes, but nobody has a helmet.
Yeah, there's some places in the valley where it's just not having a helmet, it's a lot scarier than motorcyclists without helmet.
And I see that too, but that's state law.
Yeah, that's state law, but still, there's a lot of the times, like some of the streets that I go down, there's barely any room on either side of the street for a bicycle.
Oh, that was a huge issue right now with the bike lanes on McClintock Street. And
they were just repainting them in McClintock
if
too.
they were going to keep them or get rid of them and expand that for the cars, because it's huge traffic, a lot of traffic issues. So, like, the bike share program is definitely a new project. It's a learning process.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, the city of Tempe is trying to implement, laws. So, like, hey, so people don't just carelessly leave them around. As far as, like, hey, well, if you take it here and you just dump it, maybe we'll implement a fine for that person. I guess there were some stories of bikes being thrown into canals.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. No, I've come across somebody found out which line is the brake line and how to cut it so where the bike is still usable, but it turns off the locking.
Fencing, I believe it's called. They were also looking into that.
Yeah.
So we're working on it.
And they're all they all have little trackers on them, because I have a guy that comes around in the early mornings when he's picking them up. He's like, I have a bike that says it's right here. And I'm like, well, this is a 6-level garage. Have fun. And he's just like, and I'm like, I haven't seen it yet, dude, but it's probably down below, because a lot of the people who will bike into work will hide the bike somewhere on property.
I've seen that
it's there. And I'm like,
it's kind of pointless because anyone can find it.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm like, there'll always be another. Calm down.
Yeah. But one of the good things I've seen that they've implemented too is if there's a bicycle that's outside of the area where it's supposed to be parked, they actually offer rewards for people who they can actually go and get this bike, and if they bike it back to an actual parking station, they get a $5 credit on their next ride.
See, I think that's better than implementing fines for people, because I feel like that would deter people from using them, and we want people to use them. We want less cars on the street. So
that explains why ones by my entrance suddenly disappear before I can say something.
Yeah.
There's definitely, I feel like they've been getting cleaned up, I guess, for lack of a better term.
They're figuring out what's working and what's not.
Yeah.
And that's pretty great. Other things that we seen anything else that maybe Tempe's working on, or even the Phoenix area? I would like to see something implemented. Like, I think there was one city in Oregon, and I think San Francisco just passed it, where there's no plastic bags allowed anymore. So
I know Arizona has put its foot in the door with that as well. I believe Flagstaff tried to pass a no plastic, plastic bag ban, but our state government came in and put their foot down and said, no, we overrule you, and signed in a law that says, cities can't do that.
Wait, what?
So they set the bar that, as far as like state and local government, a lot of local governments try to do things, and the state usually comes in and kind of, forces their way into things and says, you can't do that.
Oh, if only there were a way we could, help with that.
like maybe
go out and vote
for someone new in our state government. I wonder who's doing that.
What a great transition. There are currently 2 candidates that I'm aware of that are going to be running for governor in Arizona. One of them is Steve Farley, and the other one is Kelly Fryer from Tucson, and they are both Democrats.
Oh. And there's no Republican nominee, or is the Republican Arizona Party probably going to push?
They're most likely going to push Ducey, unless there is somebody else that I haven't heard of, but I'm 99% sure they're going to push for him.
So you want to talk about maybe Steve Farley's positions a little bit?
So currently right now he is House Minority Leader and Ranking Democrat for the Finance Committee. He is actually going to be having, if you want to get to know him more, and if you're local to Tempe and the Phoenix area, he's going to be having an event on Boulders on Broadway, May 30th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m.
Oh, it's not too far away.
No. And so I know you just found out about the female Democrat candidate whose name just escaped me.
Kelly Fryer.
Thank you, Kelly Fryer. So what have you learned? Or
the main thing that kind of stood out to me, kind of caught my attention, because I have been leaning more towards Steve Farley, because one of the things, back to Red for Ed, he's been pushing for teachers' pay for a while now. He's a big, supporter of public transit, which feeds back into sustainability. But she apparently is very anti-establishment, which is a very good green flag for me, coming from, a huge Bernie Sanders supporter.
Nice.
Very nice. So, well, we just talked state. How about federal? What kind of federal issues are on your radar?
Oh, what hasn't, since Trump's been our president? There's been so many. hasn't been too many positive federal government issues or things that they've been pushing very negative as far as like the EPA and Scott Pruitt and what he has been rolling back as far as like, like emissions for cars, the Clean Water, Clean Air Act. I mean, he's done a lot of damage.
How about The Rock for president?
I would probably be down for it.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson, 2020.
Yes.
I'm perfectly on board with that too. He's a people person. If there's one thing I learned about Reagan, is actors can be good presidents sometimes.
Thank you for the sometimes.
Like I said, sometimes.
Sometimes.
Well, see, Trump isn't an actor.
This is true. He's a reality star.
Yeah, reality star.
Yes. So I think we've definitely let the cat out of the bag that at least we are liberals. That doesn't want us to deter you from actually listening to us. We do want comments if you are a conservative. We want to speak to conservatives and specifically conservative millennial pagans. We need opposing views and opposing voices.
Yeah.
So don't feel like we're excluding you. If you do feel personally attacked,
I think that's one of the problems America has right now. It's very taboo to talk about politics, and when we do talk about it, it's
that's how we don't have conversations about it, or how we don't fix anything. That's why we've been in this loop.
Yeah,
for as long
we
as
need to talk.
Yes.
We need to talk, but there's a difference between talking and arguing about a matter.
Yes.
And it's something that, I mean, personally, with friends that I have that are on both sides of the line, I always make sure to say, we're going to talk about it. We're not going to argue about it. If things seem like they're starting to get heated, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about what we're going to get for lunch or what we're going to get for dinner.
Right. Right.
What topping should be on pizza?
Not pineapple.
Oh.
Apparently I'm alone in this room.
A little bit.
Pineapple on pizza.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, no.
Well, you have the sweet of the pineapple, the savory of the ham and the cheese. And there's a great contrast in flavors there.
And adding jalapenos to that is a good mix too.
Yeah.
Pineapple does not go with cheese. Pineapple does not go with tomato sauce.
It's better than that picture floating around on Facebook of like pizza with mayonnaise and peas on it.
Oh,
that one I can agree.
Tell me that exists.
That one I can agree with. No mayonnaise or peas on pizza. Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Well, you know what, folks? I think we're going to wrap it up today with Millennial Pagan Podcast, as we normally do. Current events going on. May 15th will be the first night of Ramadan night.
Yeah, there you go.
Said it right this time. May 28th is U.S. Memorial Day. The 29th is the full moon. And like we said, May 30th, if you are local to Tempe, Boulders on Broadway will have Steve Farley. We believe that you do have to pay for tickets, but it goes back into his funding for this week, this episode. We would like to thank our newest Patreon supporter, Simon. Thank you so much for your support.
Yes, thank you, Simon. And hopefully you got the message that we sent you, just as a little personal thank you as well.
Right. And if you were on the fence about being a Patreon supporter or questioning whether or not it's worth it, it is, because you get one free monthly mini-sode every time you are a supporter, for every supporter. Well, not a personal mini-sode, but it's definitely kind of personal.
It's a Patreon exclusive mini-sode that we want to bring out, kind of talking a little bit more in depth for different topics that we feel probably might not fill an entire episode, but we do want to do these mini-sodes to definitely help you guys probably understand a little bit more about us and a little bit more about what you want to hear.
Of course. And please, if you're just seeing us on like Facebook posts or Twitter, you can listen to us and subscribe to us on SoundCloud, Podbean, and iTunes.
Yes, iTunes has actually been one of our biggest listening ports lately.
Oh, very fabulous. So thank you, iTunes. Yes. You can also find the pod on Patreon, as we just said, Twitter, Facebook and email. Twitter and Facebook are both Millennial Pagan Podcast. Email is going to be millennialpaganpod@gmail.com. Where can they find you?
Of course, as always, Hagrid Cosplay. That's one of my main sources. Of course, find me on there on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that fun stuff.
And you can find me on Twitter at Autumn Wolf with an E, Facebook Autumn Wolf with an E. Email is going to be autumn.ironwolf, and my blog is on WordPress, Autumn Wolf for the name, but the name of the blog is Iron Wolf Circle. And Franny, where can our listeners find you?
I am on Facebook either as Franny did. I'm always, welcoming new friends, new people to talk to. Or you can also find me under Cauldron and Broom on Facebook and Etsy. I'm currently under, my Etsy store is under construction. I'm revamping it as far as what I'm going to be selling. Mm-hmm. But you can find me at all 3 locations.
So Cauldron and Broom?
Cauldron and Broom. Cauldron and Broom, correct.
Okay.
Fantastic. All right. Well, merry meet.
Merry part.
And merry meet again.